Welcome to Walking with Spirit with Dr. Ruth Anderson on the International Angels Network. Today is Thursday, August 23, 2018. I'm your host, Ruth Anderson, and I'm coming to you from Colorado. This show has been pre-recorded, so we won't be able to take any calls from listeners. Here at International Angels Network, we explore spirituality, angels, spirit guides, our loved ones on the other side, and much more. Our radio podcasts are available to you on Pocket Casts, Pinterest, Player FM, Podchaser, and now Overcast Radio. Listen to us on Alexa and Echo Amazon devices or download the TuneIn app. These are all easy sites to use and make it simple to listen to our archived shows. Tonight I am so excited to present Spotlight on Lightwork with my friend and fellow lightworker, JoLee Wingerson. If you love animals and are intrigued with animal communication, you have to stay with us. This episode of International Angels Network is sponsored by Holistic Light Rejuvenation Center. For more information, visit holisticrejuvenate.com. Sunday Sturgeon is the founder and CEO of Holistic Light Rejuvenation Center and is a host on our network. We are pleased to announce that International Angels Network is now also sponsored by Audible by Amazon. If you go to www.audibletrial.com/International Angels Network, you can get a free audiobook. So please check that out today. I would like to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to listen in. This show is called Walking with Spirit. Walking with Spirit means consciously living in the physical realm with frequent connection to the divinity in the spirit realm and being open to all that they want me to experience. Every day I check in with my guides, Divine Mother and God, sometimes seeking guidance, sometimes seeking connection, and sometimes seeking their healing abilities. Many days I receive lessons by hearing, seeing, or feeling signs coming in from the energetic realm. I never know what my day is going to look like or what the next learning might be. Each week I share a story about an experience I had while walking with Spirit. This one happened about a month ago. Sunday was my youngest daughter's hamster. He was named Sunday because his coloring was black and white like a hot fudge sundae. As he got older, his health started to fail. He lost weight, and his black hair turned light gray, so he looked nothing like the robust, colorful hamster we first brought home. Sunday got sicker and thinner each day. We were told that he had diabetes, and there was nothing to do other than watch his diet. Still, Sunday loved to be fed and spoken to. He greeted us each night when we fed him. He liked nothing more than to get out of his cage and connect with us. One night we saw a definite change in his behavior. He paced in small circles and was unable to stop and rest. I put my hand in his cage and he crawled under my hand and laid down. It was obvious to me that Sunday was in the process of dying. Later that night, I brought Sunday's cage upstairs and put it in the bedroom so he would know that my daughter was nearby. I asked Divine Mother if Sunday was dying that night. She said no. I asked, what can I do to make this better for Sunday? She answered, just hold him. As my daughter was on round-the-clock pain medication for having her wisdom teeth out, I was awake several times through the night. Each time I turned on the lights, I checked on Sunday, and he was still alive. In the morning, Sunday's back legs were no longer functioning, and he dragged himself around the cage, still trying to pace in circles. My husband reclined in the chair and held Sunday against his stomach, cupping his hands around him to warm and calm him. Sunday responded by dozing off and on. When it was my turn, I lay on the couch and held Sunday on my chest. He was wrapped in a soft blanket. The warmth of my hands and my steady heartbeat seemed to comfort him as he was able to doze. As I cradled Sunday, I could feel his core temperature dropping. I knew he would be dying soon, so I committed to doing nothing more than being with him as he transitioned. I held him motionless for 3 hours. At one point, he shuddered and let out 2 startling hamster gasps. I put him on my daughter's lap so she could hold him as he passed. Sunday left us about 5 minutes later, leaving me with a giant void. Sunday had a small heart, but a huge capacity to love. His soul was a gift to be treasured, and I hope to meet up with him again someday. Later that day in meditation, Divine Mother handed me Sunday in soul form. I immediately started crying and clutched Sunday under my chin. My tears flowed freely. I held him and spoke with him. The Oversoul of the hamster showed up, as large and tall as I was sitting down. I clutched Sunday closer. He squirmed out of fear of the Oversoul. I put my hand out and touched the Oversoul's fur. I stroked the fur on its stomach, head, and back, and then touched its paw, almost as if I were shaking its hand. It showed me a hamster eating its young, and I felt that the Oversoul was not malevolent. No wonder Sunday was squirming. Sunday showed me our diamond dove Lola and his littermate Frederick. Say goodbye. I will. I remembered the white hamster I had tried to heal when I was a child. I wondered if he and Sunday were the same soul. I saw Tucker in spirit come join us and sit almost on my lap. I embraced him. Tucker had died just a couple weeks before. Then my dog Bailey, whom I had adored and lost, joined us to the left of Tucker. These were all animals that had truly touched my heart and soul. I cried. Then in body, my dogs Jack and Maddie came up for attention. I was reminded of the animals that still live in my home and my ability to connect with them in spirit. I love animal communication and would like to continue doing that. I would like to teach that and could get very excited about the possibility. I saw Sunday with me while doing animal communication and teaching the class. Please, Sunday, stay with me. Divine Mother, can Sunday stay with me so I can teach animal communication with him? Yes, he can. I would love that. Then Jack curled up at my feet so I could rub his belly. I had a memory of the white hamster that my brother owned as a child. I was maybe all of 8 years old, and I was convinced that if I held it in my palms, that healing powers would come through my hands and heal it. Sadly, that was not the case. So why was I thinking of this white hamster now, 50 years later? Divine Mother, were the white hamster I tried to heal as a child and Sunday the same soul? Yes. Wow, this same hamster soul came into my life twice and created lasting change in my soul. I knew when I first saw him that Sunday was different, and now he is never leaving me. So thank you for listening. I am an author and a spiritual counselor providing individualized transformational experiences for my clients using Holy Fire Reiki, energy work, and connection with the spiritual divinity, including the Divine Mother, Archangels Michael, Gabriel, and Raphael. If my work with the spiritual divinity sounds like something you would like to explore, please feel free to reach out to me at openclinic1@gmail.com, and we could discuss a private long-distance session. Make sure to mention that you are a listener of International Angels Network to receive a discount. I also just launched a new book that came out on Amazon August 7th, Walking with Spirit, Divine Illuminations on Life, Death, and Beyond. Shares so many lessons that I have learned this past year and a half, including what happens when we die, how you can connect to the spiritual divinity, and what the spirit realm can teach us about the physical realm we live in. It is available in Kindle now and will be coming out in paperback soon. So please be looking for that on Amazon. So let's get started with our featured guest tonight, Spotlight on Lightworker JoLee Wingerson. The topic of her show is How to Communicate with Your Pets. I would like to tell you about JoLee, our guest this evening. I met JoLee several years ago when I attended an animal communication course that she taught. Not only did I love learning how to communicate with animals, but my daughters and I fell in love with JoLee. JoLee has been an animal communicator in Colorado for 17 years. As a child, she just knew what animals were feeling and thinking. She simply thought everyone had this ability. In her work, she finds that animals experience emotional, physical, and mental challenges in life, and it is her greatest joy to help people and their pets create more loving, harmonious, and supportive relationships together. For the last 5 years, she's taught a 4-month certified animal communication course twice a year. And actually, there's one coming up starting in September. She's also been featured in the Boulder Daily Camera and on Denver's Channel 7 News. So welcome to the show, JoLee.
Thanks so much, Ruth. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. So, wow, it's hard to believe that it's been so long since I took the class. But maybe do you mind just even starting out with what this 4-month class is that you are starting in September, and can folks that are not in Colorado take this class?
Sure. Yeah, this is a class that is designed to help people who want to become professional animal communicators, as well as people who want to simply communicate better with their own pets. So there's a wide variety of people who join the class for different reasons, and it's tailored to help people at whatever skill level they desire in their lives. Some people simply want to develop the skill and don't even know why. They just feel drawn to take the class. So people learn a tremendous amount in the 17 weeks of the class to support them with communicating with pets. We practice reading pets every single class, and they develop to the ability to trust their skills. And that's really the most important thing with animal communication, is to trust. People receive information quite easily, I find, and it's often highly accurate, but people don't trust it. So that's what the longer course is designed to help people with. And I do have people, of course, that come in person, and then really from around the world. I had somebody that joined the 4-month class via video and audio from Australia, and a couple of people have taken the class from Hawaii, and so people can join from all over the world.
Oh, that's great. And I know for me what was so helpful was when you spent time with us learning how do you work with clients. How do you figure out what you want to charge, and how do you set up appointments and all of that?
Sure.
Very helpful information.
Good. Yeah, I devote one entire class to helping people set up their business. So just everything that I've learned over the years, I pass on to people that I think might be helpful to them and save them some time and give them some focus on what's the first thing, what's the most important thing to start with, and then going from there. I'm glad you found it helpful too, Ruth.
Yeah, absolutely. So, JoLee, 17 years doing this work.
Yes.
What kinds of things do people seek you out for? What can you help them to know about their animals?
Yeah, it's really a pretty wide variety of reasons why people call me. Usually it's an issue they have with their pet or a question that they have with their pet. So it could be that their dog is just very nervous and they want to know why. That's one thing that people can sometimes contact me about. Relationships tend to be, I think, one of my specialties is if a pet is having a relationship issue with another dog. I or if a pet's having a relationship issue with a person or with a group of people. That's a frequent thing. I just had a session with somebody this week who got a new dog who just wasn't fitting in with her current dogs very well, and it was the dog was afraid, really, and was taking the senior role where the dog that already had the senior role was put off by that. And so we just did some negotiation to help the dog, the new dog, who was so afraid and being kind of, being the leader, or wanting to be the leader. He's just a puppy, but wanting to be the leader, to feel safe. And we just talked with him and helped him see that the current leader was actually a very good leader if he would just relax and let him lead. And it really turned around, and the person was very pleased with how much more harmonious the three dogs were. And really the dog, the puppy that was trying to be the leader, he was way out of his element. He didn't really want to do it. It was just instinctual, that's right. What he thought he had to do. So relationships are big issues, and like quirky behaviors. I worked with a greyhound who was terrified of the trash truck every week, just absolutely terrified, and we were able to help her overcome that, those kinds of things.
It's just fascinating. I love doing the animal communication myself, and I just get fascinated hearing you talk about it. How do you receive information from animals? Do you hear it, see it, sense it, or a combination of ways?
Yeah, it's I primarily focus on seeing information. My primary training was in clairvoyance, and that's a very accurate way to receive information, and it's also you can receive a lot of information very clearly and very neutrally. Like they say, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So I really focus on seeing. I naturally feel. That's how I first started receiving information, and as a child, that's how I received a lot of my information, was through feelings. So that is a way that I receive information, but it's not the most prominent way anymore. Hearing information is also a way. Sometimes information will come in through hearing. The other way is just simply knowing, and that's the most subtle form of receiving information, and it's actually probably my most powerful way of receiving information naturally. It's just so hard to categorize or to explain.
I know.
Sort of thing, but the knowingness is very powerful. I teach primarily clairvoyance because I do believe that is the easiest way to receive the most information, the most accurately, and the most neutrally.
So I remember one of the classes when you invited St. Francis in.
Yes.
And that was the first that I had experienced St. Francis. And St. Francis is actually, I'm experiencing his energy in the room with me here now.
Yes.
Yeah. And what I love about the archangels in St. Francis and Divine Mother, they can be everywhere at the same time, which I just think is the most exciting thing. What other beings or light forms do you work with the animal communication?
Yeah, so definitely St. Francis, Mother Mary, and the archangels, primarily because I work with those energies, those beings, because their energy is so gentle, and most animals respond to their energy, and they offer healing, and then they wait. They fine-tune the healing that they're doing with the animal so that the animal feels safe and responsive to the healing. So I just really like how they work so respectfully and powerfully with animals. And I like working with the masculine energy as well as feminine energy, because some animals prefer one or the other. So those work out very nicely. I also work with Archangel Ariel. She is an angel that works very specifically with animals, and she's very powerful and just extraordinarily kind, and animals tend to relate to her a lot. So that's mostly, there are lots of other healing energies that may or may not present to an animal. One of the other ones that comes in so strongly often is the Oversoul of that species. And so,
right, let's talk about that, because I mentioned that in Sunday's story.
Yes.
But I didn't explain it, so that would be awesome if you could explain it.
Sure. Yeah, every species has an Oversoul. So like for the dog species, there's an Oversoul of dogs, which is a divine aspect of that species that doesn't incarnate into a body. So it stays in the spirit realm, and it takes care of that entire species. Within the dog species realm and the Oversoul of dogs, there are also subcategories. So say a German Shepherd. German Shepherds have helped humanity in various ways, and they've developed their own Oversoul. So German Shepherds may have an Oversoul. Greyhounds, I see a lot of greyhounds. There's an Oversoul aspect that is part of them. And so, and same for cats. And for every species, there's the primary, for bears, there's the primary Oversoul of bears. And then for subspecies, there may or may not be an Oversoul. Of course, there are lots of subspecies I haven't looked at to see, so I'm not sure how many have a subspecies Oversoul, but it's pretty common. And those Oversouls are actually who help animals coming into this body. They help animals decide which body they want and what they're going to experience that lifetime. And then when animals transition back out of the body, then they go back to that Oversoul. So for you to have called in the Oversoul of hamsters, that's just a very natural thing. I often do that when animals are transitioning, but I will often do that to help with healing as well, because sometimes an animal is so connected with their species and they're not as connected with the human world that they may be more comfortable receiving healing from their own species, from the Oversoul of their own species.
I have not tried that. That's interesting. I haven't tried that.
Something to play around with.
Yes, I would say.
It is.
Huh. Okay. So, JoLee, one time I saw the Oversoul of Indian meal moth.
Oh, my gosh.
It was huge.
Oh, my
and it was
gosh.
Crazy. Yeah.
Oh.
It was, because I remember you saying in class once that, like, if you have like an ant infestation, to call in the Oversoul of the ants and encourage them to move on, lest you spray them. And that has worked very well for me. So we had this infestation of Indian meal moths, and I thought, well, what have I got to lose?
Exactly.
So I learned fascinating information from the Oversoul of the Indian meal moth.
Oh, my gosh. And did it help with helping them
it
move
actually
on?
Did.
Great.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, it's the way to go. It's kind of miraculous how it works, because the individual animals or insects or whatever, in their bodies, they're just going on instinct and like, hey, this house is kind of nice,
That's right.
But the Oversoul can help guide the individuals and respect your wishes and help them find another place that maybe isn't as destructive and can serve their purposes as well. So good job, Ruth.
Well, and what was interesting was I had asked the question of the Oversoul, why do moths go to a flame?
Yeah.
Right? Just curious. Why do they do that?
Sure.
And I was told it was not because of the heat, because that's what I always thought it would be.
Right.
And it's not because of the light, which I always thought it would be.
Right.
It was because the energy of the moth is very high vibrational energy, and the vibration of the flame is very high vibrational energy. And so it was like energy attracting like energy.
And how interesting.
And then what I was shown was that that's what people do too, that we connect with people that are vibrating at our same vibrational energy.
Well, and doesn't that make sense? So it's not the
Perfect
visual.
Sense.
It's just the energetic draw, the attraction on an energy level. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that does make sense.
Very cool. Yeah. So JoLee, one thing you and I were talking about the other day is the responsibility that we have as animal communicators. Do you think that there are different types of responsibility depending on who, whether it's a person or what, whether it's an animal that you're reading?
Well, yes, it's huge actually, and I do think of it frequently. I often, when people ask what I do, I'll say that I'm an interpreter. I really am receiving information from pets and receiving the same information the way I was talking about how I, how I receive information. Pets receive information the same way. So it's seeing and feeling and hearing and knowing. And so my responsibility, communicating with a pet and then passing that on to their person who's requested the session, usually, is to be as accurate as possible, because that's the only communication they're going to get in that, in that moment. And I want it to be I want to stop and make sure that I'm actually communicating as accurately as possible what the animal really wants to say. And sometimes I'll even just stop and sort of check in and say, is this, am I saying this right? Is this really what you are wanting to communicate, to make sure that is just as close to what they want to share as possible.
Right. So we had a cockapoo named Tucker, and he was 16 and had gone through cancer. And, boy, just a trooper, and wanted to stay living, and just like every day was just getting harder and harder. So I asked him, are you ready to go? And he said no. And I said, are you in pain? And he said yes. And I said, okay, then let me rephrase this. Are you ready to go? And he said no. And then he showed me the vision of a medicine bottle. And it was like, ask the vet for pain medicine.
Right.
So I did, and it helped. And then, like a month later, I said, okay, Tuck, how are you doing now?
Right.
Are you ready to go now?
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah. So it was like, okay.
Yeah.
So we did. But most folks can't hear their dog's wishes and thoughts, so that's what you do.
It is what I do, and it's really just respecting exactly where they are and exactly where the person is too. So often that, in a situation like this where, how do I know when my pet's ready to go? Often it's sort of a dance between the person and the pet. And the pet doesn't want to leave before the person's really ready. And so it's not an isolated decision usually. Often I will see that an animal is, they're in pain, or they're just run out of life force. You can just tell, you can just see it in their eyes that it's their time. And checking in with them and to see, is this time or not, they really are often saying, gosh, not quite yet because my person's not ready. So it's just, that's so beautiful to me and so touching that, and animals, this is just what happens all the time, is they're in relationship with us and they care about us and they want their passing. They know how difficult their passings are. They tend to be very neutral about it.
Right.
Animals tend to be like, oh yeah, crossing over, oh yeah, no big deal. Oh yeah, I can or not, whatever, I'm okay either way. They don't take it, so it's not such a big thing for them as it is for us. But they're very aware how difficult it is for us, and so they want to be sure that their people are taken care of, and I just find that so very, very dear.
It is very sweet. What are some of the different animals that you've read? Are there any exotic ones in the mix?
Oh gosh, yeah. There's I've read a few snakes and a few sea, just saltwater kind of creatures and different things. But the ones that really come to mind, there were two actually that it was just such a surprise. The first one, I was reading a group of Abyssinian cats. So it was a couple, their kids had gone to college, and their cats, they had 4 Abyssinian cats that they were loving and breeding, and they just amazing, amazing creatures, these very exotic cats. But the real surprise was one day they said, oh, I want you to check in with our fish. And they said, we have a goldfish that was our son's goldfish, and he's gone away to college. And this, we're wondering if she's lonely. Her name's Lily. Well, I walk into the room, and before I even stepped into their son's room, I could feel the energy pulsating out of the lung. This fish, the son had this fish for, the son wasn't 25, so they must have had the fish before the son. I remember the fish was 25 years old. And probably
the fish was 25 years old.
The fish was 25 years old. Her name was Lily. She was about 9 inches long. She was in a wall aquarium, so like a, 6-foot aquarium. She was the only fish in there, and they wanted to know if she wanted any company, and she said no, just her people. She did miss the son very, very much, and requested that they spend more time in there with her since she wasn't going to be moving. This was her very permanent home.
Wow.
Because it was a built-in aquarium, into the wall, and so she was just wanting more company. So it's like, if you're going to read a book, really, she was such a healer, and she just wanted to heal people. And so not having a person there to heal left her without a purpose. And it was just astounding. So every time I went for a session with the cats, I always went in and talked to Lily because I got a healing, and it was just so beautiful. My heart just opened. And then a few years later, I met another goldfish named Happy, who was in an aquarium with other people. Same thing. This goldfish filled the room. His relationship with his person was so incredibly strong. It was just very inspiring and very beautiful. And I think Happy was like 15 years old or something like that. And just the Happy was very appropriate. He was an enormously joyous fish. But just to have a goldfish, you think of something as ordinary as a goldfish, and to see this huge being in this incredible relationship that they've had for all these years, those kind of things stay with me.
I love that.
Yeah.
Wow. And you and I had read some goats together.
Yes.
Remember that? We took the girls out to go feed the goats. That was you were milking the goats. We were just watching you, but milking them. That was very cool.
Yeah, goats are amazing creatures. They're kind of like dogs. They're kind of like outdoor dogs in that goats have been domesticated for as long as dogs. So dogs are, and of course goats used to live inside with people. That is only more recently that they've been just outside and people have been just inside. I mean, people used to live with their animals. They would live kind of down below them or whatever. But goats are enormously friendly, highly intelligent, really fun creatures, and so individualistic. I adore goats. And it was so much fun to have you and the girls out to
that was fun.
Communicate with them.
Yeah. So just thinking about some of the different personalities that you've seen.
Yes.
So, I mean, I know the answer to this, but I'm just going to ask it anyway. Do
Okay.
you find, for the listeners, do you find that different species of animals sort of have similar personalities, or are their personalities just as varied as people's are, regardless of what shape their bodies are?
Right. Well, there's like horses and goats and, the four-legged creatures that are sort of what we consider prey animals, like llamas, and, they're all domesticated animals, live outside, kind of similar in themselves. But each species has a different function. So those three species are all very connected with humans and have been for eons. But they're very different in their relationships with people and their teachings of people. So I see each species, because of their unique purpose, horses have traditionally been carrying people and helping people with work, relating to people, very, very close relationships, and goats have primarily been milked, and so that's a very different relationship. Llamas have traditionally been used for pack animals, and they're very close to camels, and they're a little bit more independent. They haven't traditionally been ridden, so the relationship isn't quite as powerful, and they tend to be a little bit more independent of people, but still very closely related. So I see differences in species, and then, of course, within a species, the personalities are endless. There's, there's the Oversoul purpose for this species, but then the individual personalities and intelligence. Horses are highly, highly, highly intelligent, as are goats, as are llamas, much more so than we give them credit usually. And so their personalities are incredibly individualistic.
And very humorous sometimes.
And
do you find that to be true?
I find many, many animals are capable of deep levels of humor. Sometimes intentionally and sometimes not even intentionally.
Right.
They're just, because they see the world so differently that as they relate to us, there's just a level of humor. I'll never forget this one dog that I was visiting. It was very early in my career, and I visited this dog. Her name was Maple, and I don't even remember what the issue was, but we had quite a conversation, and she was a very serious dog, a highly intelligent and thoughtful dog. She just reminded me kind of like of a professor, with eyeglasses on and a pipe or something like that. I mean, she was just very studious and very curious about things. And I just remember at one point during our conversation, she looked at me and she communicated to me. She said, "Are you going to come live with us now?"
Oh.
And I just looked at her and I thought, well, that's really such an interesting question. And so I communicated that to their people, that's what she had asked me. And they just started laughing and they said, well, we moved here about a year ago and we have had 3 people who have come and talked with us about, whatever things are in their lives. You come for a visit, like I was there for a visit,
Sure.
And they, like her sister had come for a visit, and then she moved in. And then somebody else, another friend, had come for a visit and then moved in. And so it was so funny. She's like, "Oh, you're here for a visit. Are you going to be coming to visit us, to live with us now?" Because in her mind, that made perfect sense. And, I just got such a kick out of that. So
that's funny. Yeah. That's just what people do.
It's just what people do. They come visit. Next thing you know, they're moving. And she was very open to that. She's like, "Oh, wouldn't that be nice for you to come live with us?" And she was a little disappointed when I said no, or people thought it was just really cute. I did too.
That's funny. That's funny. So when I took my Reiki for Animals class, one of the assignments was to find an animal in nature, a wild animal in nature, to do Reiki on. I thought, wow. Seriously.
Yeah, right.
How am I supposed to find this?
Yeah.
So our home, our backyard is next to some open space, and there's a lake nearby.
Yeah.
And so we get the Canadian geese that would come by.
Yeah.
And so I was sitting in my living room looking out the picture window, just praying for a goose, any goose to come up. And then literally about 10 minutes after that, this goose head pops up from beyond our fence. And I thought, that's it. That's my goose. So I asked it if I could do Reiki on it, and it said yes. And so, I was being really conscious about how much Reiki, because I didn't want to, I know Reiki can do no harm, but I just wanted to be really careful.
Right.
And so I'm doing the Reiki on this goose, and then this other goose kind of gets close, and my goose gets unhinged, just unhinged, and just like chases it away.
Oh my gosh.
And I said, "Now really, did you have to react that strongly?" And the goose says, "You don't know how she is. That's just how she is." Okay, you know her better than I do.
Oh, that's really sweet. She wanted the healing all for herself, and she was afraid the other goose was going to steal it.
That's right. It was very funny.
Animals, they're just not so different from us, or I guess we're not so different from them. That's just what I experience again and again and again, is how much they're so similar to how we are, and we can just relate to them. So that's just an example.
Yes, no, I agree. Yeah. So how do pets receive information from their people?
Yes. So they are receiving information all the time from their people. That's the thing that's so important, I think, for people to understand, is that their pets love and adore them for the most part. Mm-hmm. They are dependent on them for literally everything, from food to water to everything, and they're here for a purpose, which often that purpose is connected to relating and loving and being in relationship with their people. For dogs and cats, our pets, that's why they came. So they're always trying to figure out what's going on with us, trying to sort of read the signs of how they can help us often, or just understand things that are incomprehensible to them, or things that may affect them. So we are already communicating with them pretty much all the time. They are already communicating with us pretty much all the time. What's important is to see how that can be bridged, because we are communicating with them and they are already receiving information. The primary way animals receive information is by reading our pictures. And I'll explain that.
Yeah.
It's like if you think of a tree, you just imagine a tree. You most people will actually see a picture in their mind's eye of a tree. That's a picture. So as we're talking, we are going to be creating pictures. We don't realize we're doing it, but say we're talking about going to the beach. You know, we're going to have a picture usually of a beach scene, or maybe even that specific beach. As we're talking about, a person, talking about a grandmother, we're going to show a picture in our mind of the grandmother. Animals are able to read those pictures. We are too. We just don't realize it. It's like if you're trying to think of something and you're saying, oh, gosh, I can't think of the name of this, but it's like this, or you give a little hint here or there, and you don't really give enough of a hint that they actually could guess it, but what you're doing is you're showing them the picture. You're showing them the picture, and as you show them the picture, finally the person goes, oh, yeah, you mean blah, and you're like, yes, that's what I mean. Usually they're reading your picture. That's how they figure it out. So that's what animals are doing all the time. They're always reading our pictures. Now, they're not always interpreting them accurately because they're like, I wonder what that picture means.
Right.
And like which pictures are important and which aren't.
So is it that I'm actually thinking I need to get my keys and go get in the car? Or is it that the fact that I put on my shoes and walked into the kitchen that Maddie goes, we're going in the car.
We're going, right. It's everything. They're like us. They're reading our pictures, and that's how they receive a lot of information. But they're also used to our behaviors. They're used to our energy level. Maybe our energy level shifts a little bit when we're getting ready to go in the car. They also know names. I saw a video that was just astounding the other day of a dog that had 1,000 toys. It was a border collie, had 1,000 toys and knew the name of each one. So some animals are more attuned to actually learning human words. I mean, and a lot of animals know some words. You know how people will spell, we're going for a W-A-L-K,
Right.
The dog knows the word. And so animals do know words, but it blew me away that this border collie knew. And they actually demonstrated. They took 10 of the toys and then hid them and had the dog go get them. And the dog knew every single toy. And then they put in a toy the dog had never seen before, made up a name, and had him go get that toy. And he did. He even knew to get the toy that didn't even have the name. So he was reading the picture,
Wow.
And,
literally this dog had 1,000 toys?
1,000. They showed a picture. They showed an image. They showed it was a video. This guy was there to film this, and there was a pile of 1,000 stuffed animals, each with an individual name written on it.
Good grief.
Yeah. So animals receive information many, many ways. Mostly, if we can communicate. When I'm trying to communicate clearly to an animal, I will speak like I would speak to a 3-year-old.
Okay, I was going to ask you about that. Yep.
Yeah. So most animals, unless they've had a lot of trauma or unless they've had a brain injury, which sometimes animals have had brain injuries, most animals can understand, an adult animal can understand communication at about a 3-year-old level. So you just think of how you would communicate something. You would speak in a very simple, clear sentence. And you always want to talk with an animal about what you want, the behavior you want, not the behavior you don't want. So often we fixate on the behaviors we don't want, and the animal's like, what? You keep showing me these pictures, I don't really know what you mean. So we need to show the animal what we want through communication and through pictures, and then reward that behavior or that, responding to what we're requesting. And so both verbal communication, knowing that as you communicate clearly through words, you are showing very clear pictures as well, and then repeating it. A 3-year-old may not get it right away, or they may not be able to change their behavior right away or want to change their behavior right away, but with patience, with consistency, with time, with lots of rewarding, which can be simply praise. A lot of animals respond very, very well to just, that's exactly what I was wanting. Thank you so much for doing that. Then they're going to want to do that more. So that's how I suggest people, that's how I communicate with animals, and that's how I suggest people go about being very conscious of sending the messages, speaking the messages, showing the pictures of the clear picture of what you want. And then when they do it, even if they do a little bit towards that, because sometimes they're like, wait a minute, is this really what you want? And they'll just take a little step towards that. You say, yes, that's exactly what I want. Please do more of that. It's very simple.
Very cool. I'm picturing that. So what if you have a dog that just keeps barking and barking? Do you have any concrete ideas for that?
Yes, I do. That's something that I've addressed on my website. So at
Why don't you tell us what your website is?
It is pet-communication, communication.com. And barking dogs is a big issue for a lot of people, and dogs bark for various reasons. And so there is just an article about that, and you can go to that and read about that. In general, dogs bark, one, because that's just what they do, and that's how they communicate.
Right.
Dogs bark, that's how they communicate. So, but often dogs will bark because of their acute hearing. So there's something that we don't hear that they hear that alerts them. And a lot of dogs have taken on the responsibility of being our protectors, because they're like, hey, wait a minute, didn't you hear that? And then they realize, you didn't hear that. Well, then I need to make sure that you hear what I hear, or that you are alerted to what I hear, because both of our safety is possibly in question. I need to be the protector, not just for you, but for me as well. So that's usually why dogs bark incessantly, or bark what we would consider inappropriately. One thing that I found very effective is to teach a dog the soft bark. And because dogs just want to communicate to you and say, hey, I heard something. And they want you to say, thank you for letting me know. That can solve so much of a dog's barking. We just yell at them and say, shut up, and close the blinds, and, get really aggravated at them.
Right.
But really to say, you barked, and to tell them, I just need one bark. I do want to know if there's something you're hearing that I don't. So I really only need one bark, and actually I would really like it to be a soft bark. You have to catch them doing a soft bark, like a woof, rather than the really loud bark.
Right.
So if you can catch them doing a soft bark, or imitate and teach them to do a soft bark, and then let them know that if they hear something, they can give a soft bark, and that you're going to respond. That's the important thing, is that when they give a bark, that they're saying, hey, guess what? I heard something, that you actually say, thank you, I heard you, I know you heard something, and even get up and go check it out. That is so effective. And I've seen it within hours. I've seen a really barky dog completely shift if the person will acknowledge the bark, actually go up and check out what's outside the window, outside the door, and say, I'm going to keep you safe. You just switch the relationship from the dog being the protector to, I'm going to protect you. I'm the protector. I'm going to check out every single thing you hear. I'm going to get up and look. And you don't show the dog. You just go look and say, I checked it out. It's all fine. There's nothing there. You go and sit down again. And then you really want to get to where when the dog has something that they think is going on, they look to you first. And that's what happens. They'll still give a little bark for a while, but barking takes a lot of energy. And if they hear something and you look at them and they look at you and they look at you expectantly like, aren't you going to go check that out? You're like, yeah, I am going to go check that out because you're not barking, and thank you so much for not barking.
Right.
It can really shift things so dynamically if we take the lead and say, no, I'm going to protect you. Thank you. Alert me in a very quiet way, and I will protect you. It can be very effective.
Well, so what you're saying makes perfect sense. And it's really making me question, because when Tucker was alive, he would bark, and part of it was dementia, I really do believe.
Yes, and that is another cause.
Yeah, but it would set Jack off, and then Jack would start barking.
Right, yeah.
And now that Tucker is gone, Jack is so much calmer.
Right, yeah.
And I don't know, maybe he was trying to protect Tucker, or, I'm not sure what, but he's a different dog now.
Yeah. Sometimes in dementia, they really don't even know why they're barking. They're just barking because dogs bark. And they think they need to express something, and they don't even know why they're barking. I was working with a bulldog not very long ago, and he was just barking all the time, and really, truly for no reason, just because. That's just what he felt like doing. So dementia, dementia is a whole different thing with barking, and it's very difficult, as you can imagine. I mean, even if they were to kind of get it for a little bit, they'd forget it and stop barking again, So it's, dementia is a whole other thing.
Yes, I'm learning about that, sadly. So, JoLee, we've got time for one last question. Yeah. So, well, maybe I'll just leave it open to you. What would you love to say that you haven't told us yet?
Well, we've talked a lot about dogs, and I would like to talk a little bit about cats, I guess, because I do about 50-50, dogs and cats. Cats, the biggest question I usually get with cats is how to keep them safe outdoors. And the primary thing that I like to encourage people to do, now not all cats want to go outdoors, so if your cat wants to be an indoor cat, I highly encourage that. Cats do tend to live longer if they're indoor cats. That's a statistic. But some cats are so wild and need to be outdoors. I mean, they really are so unhappy being indoors that they have to go outdoors, and that's where they get their healing, and it just what makes them really alive. And for cats like that, which there are quite a few cats like that, it's good to negotiate with them. And I do a lot of negotiation in my sessions, and I teach students how to negotiate. So I would communicate very clearly about predators, that they're there, and that the cat could actually not come home and not even have their body anymore if they encounter a predator, and talk about the predators and how serious that is. And then set a time for the cat to come in. Most incidences happen at night, and so a cat that's outside during the daytime has a much better chance of being safe. And so having the cat come in well before dark and then stay inside at night and go out in the morning, and so negotiating that could be helpful. And then I just over the years found so many people that have come up with really amazingly creative solutions.
JoLee, we are out of time.
Well, I said what I needed to say. Thank you, Ruth.
Okay.
I've loved it.
So folks can contact you at JoLee, JoLee, at petcommunication.com. Or if they have questions, they can also contact International Angels Network, and we'd be happy to put them in touch with you. So, JoLee, thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you so much, Ruth. It has really, truly been a pleasure.
Absolutely. And so, friends, I look forward to walking with Spirit and you next Thursday, September 6, 2018. Good night, and God bless.